evening, everybody. Wow, I love seeing this. All these new faces, this is wonderful. Thank you ever so much for all of you for coming out tonight. And as we always do, we thank the City of Wilder for allowing us to use the facility. We're a little bit turned around with the way we do things because they're still doing fish fries here on Friday, and I told them we would not move the tables. So we leave everything just the way it was because those fish fries are real important to them. So we're going to start with a short little business meeting. I know none of you came here to listen to me talk, so we're going to do a short little business meeting and then turn it over to Dawn. So Richard, can I get you to come do the minutes from last month?
Hi, first, thank you to Jan Lester for taking the minutes last month when I couldn't be here. She does a whole lot for us, so for her to take the notes too, I really appreciate it and wanted to thank her. We gathered in February here at Wilder for a presentation by members on their stories. At 7 o'clock, Steve opened the meeting and welcomed everybody. Jan announced that membership was 230 people at the time, but more were coming in. She also mentioned that Paula Collins, one of our members, was contacting our life members, just making sure our life members were okay. Jan said the newsletter articles due to her will be due by April 1st. The newsletter will go out at the end of April. It should include winning entries from our essay contest. And in terms of correspondence, Ethel Hitch at Alexandria needed to arrive to our meetings. If we find somebody to help her get to our meetings, she would like to come. Our veterans report, we had added 40 new veteran names to our files in the month, bringing a total of 15,116. A lot of these came from a project Patty Little's doing in Alexandria Cemetery, walking around just finding headstones for veterans. It's a lot of tough work, very productive. Jan showed an 1861 map that showed that Campbell County at the time had a very low percentage of slaves compared to the rest of the state. It's probably still available on Facebook if anybody wants to see it, but it's interesting information. Steve shared some news on the Delta crane in Louisiana is in bad condition at the time, unfortunately. I especially hate to announce that tonight, but you guys probably know a lot more than I do. He also an idea about local tours. That we would like to come up with ideas for tours or virtual tours of historical sites in the counties. That's something members can help with suggestions or help put these together. At that time, we turned the meeting over to our members for each of them to deliver their story, a little bit of information about them. The board members had done the same in January, so it was nice to get to know a little bit more about the members. And then he announced the next meetings included tonight's. Then in April, E.O. Robinson of Campbell, we'll talk about him and his house. May was still open. The previous scheduled one had to change months. But in June will be our picnic and our volunteer of the year. And in July we'll have a presentation on Snyder's Sweet Shop. History Day will be May 4th, Saturday, unfortunately Derby Day at the Early Engler Library. Free admission. I know the rooms will be a little crowded with some remodeling going on, but free admission May 4th, and it should be another good event. We'll be there with them.
Very good. Glenn, I see you're always in the queue, already in the queue here, so.
We opened the month with $11,672.55, and we had 21 member renewals, one life member signed up, and 3 business members. We had $165 in donations, sold $153 in publications, and one internet technology sponsor, so the income was $892.57, and we bought supplies for the office, paid a copier lease, and then some fees for PayPal and our internet purchases. So we spent $250.38, closing the month with $12,314.74.
Very good. For one of those mega corporations, big money we're talking about. Okay, Jan is not here. She and Jeff got an invitation to go to Georgia for a week of golf, and you can't keep that girl away from her golf, so that's where they are. She did announce that membership is up to 261 right now, and they're still coming in. Articles are due by April 1st, okay? A couple of notices. If anybody's interested, St. Francis Cemetery, there's a group down there working really hard on that, and they've got a cleanup day on March the 23rd, and you just have to meet there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they'll get you working. The other thing, there is the Sons of American Revolution are doing a Patriot grave marking. That is April 20th. And that is at the Stevens Farm Cemetery on Amy Lou Drive in Alexandria. And so I have information if anybody's interested in that. Something that should be kind of neat, Northern Kentucky Restoration is having like an open house on April 27th in the Newport Intermediate School. We will have a table there, and apparently we're making a presentation too. I don't know, the latest email was like, oh, by the way, you're making a presentation. So I guess we're doing that too. In Alexandria, down by our office, the Main Street Business District down there, there's a couple dozen districts down there, but they're opening, or they're inviting all of them in Alexandria to come down on May 11th from noon to 8. They're going to close part of Washington Street and have like a big street party down there. So we'll have more information as we learn more about that, but we'll be involved in that as well. Do you want to say anything on essay contest?
Those of you who don't know, we have an essay contest every year. This is our 16th year. We have 20 junior level essays and 3 senior level essays. They're now in the hands of the judges at NKU, so I can't tell you who won yet. That will be next month. But we get some excellent essays from the students in Campbell County.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now a different hat. Marcia and I are in charge of the Veterans Collection up at the office, and if any of you are veterans or have had someone in your family that's a veteran, we'd love to have a sheet on your military service. Last month, we added 98 veterans to our collection, and bringing the total to 15,214. That's a lot, and this is people in Campbell County. We're not looking outside of the county. If you were born here, lived here, died here, maybe walk through the county, we'll take it.
All right, thanks, Shirley. Okay. Richard touched on the reminiscences that we asked for from communities, and this started, how long ago, Charlie, did you give me that thing that your mother had done in 1970 on Bellevue?
It's been a couple of years.
Oh, it hasn't been that long. I know.
Yesterday was 2 years.
Anyway, it started, his mother in 1970 just wrote down things that she remembered about Bellevue, about growing up there. And I told Charlie, we got to find something to do with this. So I asked everybody at the meeting last month, if anybody was interested, let me know. Well, one guy, where are you, John? Oh, right there. John picked up and said, oh, I'd like to do Bellevue too. So he has jumped in there. He meets with a group of other graduates from Bellevue, and periodically, and now he's got them working on it too. So we should be able to put something really nice together for Bellevue. I'd like to do it for Newport and Dayton and Fort Thomas and all the rest of the areas throughout the county. So if anybody else is interested, all you got to do is jot down things that you remember about growing up. And then once we figure out how much stuff we have, and if we have a lot of pictures or what have you, we'll put something together. But let me know if you're interested. and I'll give you an outline of things to look for, and hopefully we can put together something for a number of different communities within the county. Just got the news today. I talked to Terry Vance, the city administrator here in Wilder, and you know, our Christmas tree fundraiser has been really successful down in Alexandria. Mark has just done a phenomenal job with that. We went from 14 trees the first year to 24 trees the second year, 52 trees last year. So, you know what, we filled the whole yard last year. I mean, I don't know how much, maybe 10 more trees we can get there. So we decided that we were going to expand and try to find another location, not a different one, another location. So we've been talking with Terry, who is the city administrator here, and I sent him some stuff the other day and had a conversation with him, and he told me today that he got everybody's on board, the mayor, the council, everybody's on board, so we can do the same thing here. And Tom, and where's Sheila and Sharon? Oh, right there. Okay, all three of them are gonna take that on, and so they tell me they're gonna have 50 trees the first year. I don't know, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I hope they do, but
They branch out.
if they branch out, very good, thanks Charlie. So anyway, we'll grow it here, and who knows where we'll go after that. Question for all of our members. Our June picnic is coming up, where we have our volunteer of the year and everything. And a couple of people said, we need to have a program. We need to have some reason for doing that there. And I said, okay, well, it's hard because it's a picnic. It's hard to do a meeting like this. But what if we have some music there, a music group? They thought that was a great idea. So, has anybody heard of the Queen City Sisters? No, nobody has. They are an absolutely phenomenal group. They are there's more women in it than just three, but they do trios, and they go out and they do a cappella of the 40s and 50s songs. And one of the big things they're doing now is they're on the Cincinnati dinner train. If you ride on that, you can hear them on there. And they are just absolutely terrific. So I contacted them, and they said, yeah, sure, we'd love to do it. It's $400. And I said, oh, well, okay. Well, I mentioned it at our board meeting, and we had one board member come up and say, I'll throw 100 into that. And I've got another one that said, I'll put 100 into that. So if anybody's available and wants to give another couple $100 somehow, or some piece of that, then we can have music at our picnic in June. Let me know. Okay, and I didn't even bring the magazines. Okay. So with that, you're done listening to me. I think you're here to listen to this guy over here talk. This guy, most of you know Don, consummate storyteller, unbelievable. I've had phone conversations with him that I thought would be, like 3 minutes, like, how you doing, Don? 45 minutes later, he's still telling stories, okay? So tonight should be really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. So let me introduce you to Captain Don Sanders.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Am I talking loud enough? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's really terrific seeing everyone here tonight. There's some of you come from all over, and it's good seeing old friends and meeting new folks here. But I'm Captain Don Sanders. I'm one of a fast dwindling lot of steamboat characters. I've been a river rat for about 72 years. On the river, oops, How'd he get up there? Another guy was a river rat. On the river rat is usually considered a term of endearment, though it can have other connotations, especially when it's used outside those within our fluvial fraternity. I love that word, fluvial. I'm a local fellow from across the river, not the broad Ohio, but rather the sacred ancient stream bisecting northern Kentucky, the Nepernine, the Salt River, the Licking. Anybody here not know where the Licking River is? Some of you might not. It's just over there, about 500 yards.
Not even that, I
Not even that. Anyway, that's where the Licking is. My association with river activity, however, extends beyond 72 years. The river was a scary, frightening environment when I was very young. Whenever my parents, Jess and Anna Margaret Sanders, and I rode the Coney Island steamer, the Island Queen, we always sat on those hard wooden benches behind the pilot house. Why did we always sit on those hard wooden benches behind the pilot house, the Island Queen, where inside strange old men, about my age now, were rustling about? The darkness was terrorizing, and when that dreadful whistle blasted, I was petrified. Why did we always said that? 1952 started abysmally. My beloved grandpa, Jesse Sr.,
Ready?
I gotta get up at 3.
There.
That's my day. Died in February. Soon after, my boyhood home in Latonia was sold, and we moved closer to downtown Covington, which would eventually place me nearer to the river. In the interim, my separation from the river was complete until the spring of that year. Dad, number 4, now commanded the traffic division of Covington's police department. Before Interstate 75 mauled the west end of downtown Cincinnati and encapsulated the softball meadows of Willow Run. There we go. On the Covington side of the river in cement, north to southbound traffic from Detroit, Michigan to Jellicoe, Tennessee, and beyond flowed on US Route 25. On Friday evenings, the road jammed with bumper-to-bumper cars carrying Detroit automobile workers back to their ancestral Appalachian homes in rural Kentucky and Tennessee, crossed the river on a bridge that shared the same piers with the railroad and was simply called the C&O Bridge. Friday was also payday for the police department. And so every Friday night, my brothers Dick, Bob, and I would pile into our machine and join Dad, where we found him busy at work on the southern end of the bridge with his men under his charge. The police had a small segment set aside for them in the parking lot at the Bridge Cafe and Liquor Store. Next, 7. Across from the ramp to the bridge, Dad and his traffic troopers spent so much time around the Bridge Cafe that it became their favorite after-work place to stop for a beer or two. The employees of the Bridge Cafe were delighted to have officers of Covington's finest frequenting their establishment as great sums of money changed hands over the counter as the cashing of payroll checks attracted varying levels of social ladder, much of it from the lower rungs. The liquor store manager, a dried-up little old man named Walter, was destined to inspire me and send me on the course I had traveled for the rest of my life. His name was Walter, but generally everyone called him Walt Hoffmeyer. Walt was born on a shanty boat on the Licking River 50 or more years before he and my father became pals. Walt and his wee wife, Lorraine, owned a 52-foot wooden houseboat called the Palomine. One early day in 1952, just a few months after Grandpa died, Walt and Lorraine invited the young cops who directed traffic in front of the liquor store and their wives for a cruise on the Powell. Again, the old fears returned. When my mother and father were late returning to grandmother's house where my brothers, Dick, Bob, and I stayed while they cruised on the Ohio. Tears streamed down my neck. I don't know, they probably got that far too, but down to my eyes as I stood on the bottom rail of the white picket fence surrounding the yard of the bungalow on 38th Street as I prayed for the safe return. 2 weeks later, Mom and Dad were invited to ride the Palomine again, but this time we boys were also invited. Whatever happened that day changed my life forever, and I'm still riding that magical river spell over 70 years later. That magical river spell I just mentioned began not so far from here in Campbell County, along the southern shores of the beautiful Ohio River. The Palomine appeared nothing like the mass-produced molded fiberglass lookalikes of today. The Powell was hand-built from the keel up, board by board, of natural wood. The hull had white oak frames with Douglas fir planking, the next most durable wood after cypress. Overall, the boat measured 52 feet from the overhanging front deck, beyond the stem to the last plank of the enclosed back deck. A raised bow, stern sections, and the lower center component of the cabin gave the Powell somewhat the look of a floating castle, or at least it seemed to a boy 10 years old seeing it for the first time. The Palomine was at home at the Newport Yacht Club. Anybody remember the Newport Yacht Club?
Yeah.
On the Kentucky side of the Ohio River, upstream and opposite the Cincinnati Public Landing, during the era when Newport's soiled reputation was years yet from Reformation. The Yacht Club had its own notoriety. Yeah, I understand. Once when reading aloud the boat's name said in bright red neon letters displayed on the outside of the huge wooden harbor boat as we drove across the central bridge back there, my father warned, "Don't let anyone know you know where that place is." But despite Dad's warnings, I felt comfortable and at home the first time. I walked across the swaying gangway and stepped aboard the harbor boat where musty smells of stale beer, hemp rope, open bilges, and long since fried greasy steaks greeted me. The harbor was owned and ruled over with an iron sway by a determined woman named Helen, who was as interesting as a character as any nautical setting ever produced. She was aided by her brother Dewey. As I found over the years, Helen and Dewey were true and genuine river folk, not generally understood by the public ashore, but held in notable regard within the river community. It wasn't long before I yearned to find my niche among this odd, yet exciting congregation that found comfort and contentment on the water. The Powell was birthed at the far downstream end of a long line of floats at Helen's, as the yacht club was commonly called, a preferred dock space easy to get the heavy 55-footer in and out of without bumping into one of the fancy yachts moored closer to the headboat. Still, it was a far trek from the parking lot to haul coolers full of cold drinks or overloaded picnic baskets. Once the Powells, as we assembled on the boat, Walt laid down his orders. "You kids have to wear life jackets. No running on the boat, and don't throw stuff in the water." I think he used a little stronger word than stuff. Once the Powell single four-cylinder engine was started, lines were cast off, and the boat pushed upstream toward the golden sands of Dayton Bar, or sometimes all the way up to Lock and Dam number 36, opposite Brent, Kentucky, opposite Coney Island. So Walter typically handled the boat, For departures and landings, he preferred to join his guests while the boat cruised. So he handed steering duties over to Lorraine's nephew, Swope, a fella just a few years older than I. Swope was the luckiest kid alive. And I was determined to learn everything he knew so that I could someday pilot the pilot line like him. Swope was more than happy to start breaking me in on the techniques of steering the boat. Throughout the next couple of summers, I was getting more and more wheel time as he began fading out of the picture. I do a lot of stuff to get ahead of it. What I soon learned from Walt Hoffmeyer was that if I demonstrated my willingness to work and help with the boat, he reciprocated by teaching me more about the operation and care of his vessel, as well as sharing secrets of a river upon which he was born, grew up, and was growing old. My family was invited to ride the Palomine nearly every weekend for 3 consecutive seasons. My brothers, Dick, Bob, and I were becoming seasoned river boys, something that did not escape the notice of our parents. Soon, my folks began to search for a boat of our own. On the banks of the Great Miami River, only 35 miles from home, where repeated visits to the Hamilton Boat Club netted the grand prize. 24 is what it's supposed to be. Let's see that grand prize. Anyway. All right, the grand prize. The most lovely 38-foot paddle wheeler named the Shangri-La, which my parents brought overland by trailer to the Cincinnati public landing, launched, and paddled to the Covington Boat Harbor, immediately below or downstream the south pier of the Singing Roebling Suspension Bridge, where they named it for themselves, Marge and Jess, the Margettes. Could life get any better? I didn't think it could. The former Shangri-La was a 38-foot paddle wheel houseboat hand-built in 1947, following plans made popular in the 1930s. A 35 horsepower, 4-cylinder, flathead gasoline engine for a Durant automobile powered the paddle wheel. The Scalabella hull and the graceful cabin were wooden and painted as white as any steamboat. The red windows and molding trim matched the paddle wheel. What the Shangri-La had most in its favor, that it was the loveliest of any little boat, paddle wheeler on the river. Did that plug up?
Yeah, it skipped to 28.
Sir?
It skips from 23 to 28.
We had a lot of problems with this.
Yeah.
For so forgiveness. But it sure was a pretty boat. The Margettes caught me on the outboard side of the dock at the Covington Boat Harbor when I stepped aboard for the first time. Nothing belied Dad's difficulty earlier, launching the paddle wheeler off the lowboard trailer across the river at the public landing and getting her to where she was now tied. Moored close alongside of our boat was a dirty hand-built shanty boat, complete with all sorts of plunder, some floating, some piled high atop the roof. That was the home of the harbor master, Tex Kitchen, his wife Joy, and their toddler son. Tex, a veteran riverman who once decked for the Union barge line, was, as I found, receptive to a gangly teenage boy eager to help around the harbor and willing to work for free. Before long, I spent more time with Tex than with my family on the Margettes. After a summer spent working and learning alongside Tex through new and exciting river adventures, my family and I arrived at the Covington Boat Harbor to find a shanty boat with all its plunder missing from the end of the fleet. Tex, his wife Joy, and their little boy had gone down the river. I never saw Tex again. Texas replacement was another washed up old river rat called Mac. Though I helped Mac with a chore or two, he's more friendly with my father, who seemed to want to keep me away from the sun-beaten boatman who made chairs from water willows growing along the riverbank under the singing suspension bridge that he sold for extra cash. But that was fun. Not only did I spend more time aboard the Margest at the harbor than at home, my brothers and I had only recently discovered the pleasures of the forbidden waters of the Licking River as our new playground within easy walking distance of our house. In early 1952, the family moved to a two-story brick on Sterrett Avenue, 4 houses off of Wallace in uptown Covington. The same year we moved into the neighborhood, Mother began working as a licensed practical, she started as a medical secretary, a career step that would eventually find her retiring as a licensed practical nurse. With both of our parents working, Dick, Bob, and I became latchkey kids. As I was nearing adolescence and had been watching my little brothers for several years, our folks felt we were in good hands with me as long as I followed their command to stay in the yard. But after a while, we started playing with kids on the other side of the street whose backyards fell off into a broad inner city valley so vast that the Holmes High School football stadium and adjacent practice field occupied but a part of it. They would be in where those trees were, still there. The lower backyards of the homes on Eastern Avenue formed the eastern slope of the depression. At this lowest point, the valley was marshy and murky, with gray water standing on the ground's surface. The neighbor boys simply called the area the swamp. Immediately, the swamp became our favorite playground to escape the confines of our monotonous yard. The swamp also became the perfect battlefield. Instead of bullets and bombs, mud balls were the ammunition of choice. We warred among ourselves for a while, with me opposing my 2 younger brothers, until our cousin Ray Cooper moved next door and we had equal sides. All that warring on the property of others soon caught the attention of Mike Kors, a neighbor boy around our age who lived on the Eastern Avenue side of the hollow, whose backyard encompassed much of the swamp. Though Mike was the son of the Reverend Morris H. Kors, pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church in Covington, he too had a taste for war games. On the hill behind the white frame rectory where the Kors family lived, Mike dug a deep foxhole large enough that he and his ragtag troopers had shelter from the barrage of mud balls we rained down upon. We often heard the sound of a round striking Mike's plastic helmet liner. A charge up the hill of our gang always drove Mike and his boys inside an open basement door, where they sought shelter in an area forbidden for us to enter. Usually this meant coaxing and begging Mike to come out and play Army some more. We won't go so hard, I promised. On a warm, sunny Saturday in May of 1955, Mike eagerly accepted another challenge for play war in the swamp. Perhaps he seemed a little too exuberant to get the battle started. As always, the battle began with an exchange of clay missiles. Before long, the cry of "Charge!" rang out from our side, and we sprinted toward the enemy foxhole. Kors' army abandoned their position as if on cue and raced to the safe haven lying within the basement door. As we boys crested the top of the embankment and onto the flat ground behind the parsonage, an angry roar erupted from beyond the cellar door. Like a swarm of seething hornets, 3 roughneck boys, Mike had recruited from around the slaughterhouse area in Hellentown. A neighborhood further north, concealed within the basement, flew with us howling and screaming with intentions beyond the genteel regulations that normally govern our rules of war. So we brothers executed the only reasonable maneuver possible. We ran! Instinctively, we knew that, you remember that, Bob? That's my brother Bob. Instinctively, we knew if we ran back into the swamp, we would, as they say, get the hell beat out of it. So out to the street I ran as Dick and Bob followed. Turning right, we flew to the earthen levee we watched being built since moving into the neighborhood. Over the top, we went with our pursuers close behind. Behind the flood wall stretched an open field, ending at the Licking River. Down we went to where we could only turn left or right. Going to the left meant going toward the Bean Boys' home territory. To the right was an unfamiliar forest of tall trees that darkened the shores of the river. We were forbidden to go anywhere near. I mean, anywhere near. Stop being a cop, son, would you? We ran, hoping to elude our pursuers, but they doggedly held them to our footsteps, so determined were they of their mission. After what seemed a considerable distance, we brothers were tired, but I sensed our stalkers were falling further behind. At the same time, we were abreast of a rift in the earth alongside the trail. Down here, I whispered as I dropped off the path. Together, we tightly hugged the ground alongside the small escarpment. Moments later, the heavy footfalls of our adversaries clumped by on the trail above. They were never heard from again. Following a reasonable wait, we stood up and surveyed the expanse of the beautiful river below and the woods surrounding us. It was as though I was convinced paradise lost had been found. We promised ourselves that we would return and explore what we just found. After school was out for the day on Thursday, May 19th, 1955, Dick, Bob, and I, in company with our neighborhood friend, Larry Baldwin, returned to the area of the Licking River we had just discovered only a few days before. This time we left the woods and walked through the broken jungle of flat sedimentary rocks along the river's edge. A natural outcropping of stone made the perfect campsite, and we built our first campfire there. On a sizable sheet of shale rock, I inscribed with a harder stone, claim Madame Sanders, May 19, 1955. And this claim marker was placed beneath a sheltering outcropping of limestone until the river reclaimed the inscription during the next high water. Thus, my brothers and I claimed the stretch of the Licking River as our own and began a series of summers in the sun and a love for the river that continues today. May 19th became our camp day, marking the beginning of another summer on the Licking River full of swimming, riding passing blue logs, diving out of overhanging willows, roasting potatoes roasting in a bed of red-hot coals, and all the other forbidden delights that we boys could contrive on those long ago shores. Looking back, it seems that we spent our entire youth swimming and frolicking on an ancient waterway. Besides our times on the margin, but I left town on an excursion steamboat, the Avalon, in June of '59. So simple arithmetic tells me it was just 4 seasons, including 1959, spent frolicking in the sun. But to the young, 4 seasons can seem forever. Now, as everyone should be aware, during those summers of our youth, my brothers and I spent much of our time swimming and playing on the Licking River or at Wolf's Boat Club aboard our family paddle wheel houseboat, the Marjas. On one of those now distant days, our father brought home a disappointingly older, overweight Beagle dog. Still, after he began running and playing with us boys, the dog quickly trimmed up and became our constant companion. Soon we realized how much we loved this little dog named Patrick. We just called him Patty Boy. But he turned out to be a natural river dog who loved following along with us to the Licking River. While we swam, Patty Boy watched from shore. On especially hot days, Patty waded into the river until the cool water was around his neck, but not once did I actually see him swimming. He was the best dog we ever had. At least I always felt that way. I was a big dog person. After the first season at our Licking River camp, we naturally became curious to find what new wonders lay further upriver. There it is. On one such day, we boys set out along a very narrow trail leading through the woodlands overhung with branches and through thickets of tall ragweed, past the old city dump, later filled to become a baseball park. The path was interrupted by a wide open area surrounding the Ashland oil terminal, where oil barges were unloaded into huge metal tanks high atop the hill. A little further up the river, another field that would be, we figured, a cinch to traverse. But once we were halfway across, a terribly loud commotion behind us caused us to turn around. Two mammoth St. Bernard dogs with stout steel chains fastened about their necks that connected to hefty concrete blocks were charging at us so swiftly the concrete blocks bounced behind them like rubber doors. We ran for our lives toward the safety of the woods before us. Eventually, we sensed the dogs were slowing down. After plunging into the overgrown growth far enough away from the edge of the open field, we saw that the St. Bernards could not venture into the woods, dragging the cinder blocks behind them. We were safe. After that first encounter, enough distance was reckoned between us and the giant dogs to make a game of outrunning them as the heavy cinder blocks bounced until the pair of jumbo pups were exhausted and abandoned their pursuit. After a time, the St. Bernards grew to recognize us and ceased to give chase, much to our disappointment. Going further up the river, we came to the embankment of the L&N Railroad tracks across the Licking River, a very high bridge. On one side, closest to the outside of the bridge, a wooden walkway with a handrail provided safe passage to pedestrians. Patty Boy, we found, was terrified to walk across the high bridge, so I picked him up and carried him across to the other side. Down another steep embankment and a short distance upriver was another bridge with no accessible way to get onto it on either side of the river. A massive, rusty iron pipe running from the bridge's deck down alongside a cement pier disappeared into the ground. A pool of clear water bubbled from beneath the earth in line with a submerged pipe carrying the drinking water supply from the reservoir at Fort Thomas across the Licking River and to the city of Covington on the west side of the bridge. The riverbank and the area around the water bridge, as it was called, was overgrown with trees and thick underbrush. Beneath the twin bridges, a white water rapid known as 3 Mile Ripple roared with a rumble of thunder heard a long distance away. In the 1830s, next to the mouth of 3 Mile Creek, a dam was under construction on the river. However, due to economic problems within the federal government, the dam was never completed. When John Augustus Roebling was building his engineering marvel, the now famous suspension bridge, great limestone blocks were removed from the dam and barged to a bridge site just over 3 miles north, where they were incorporated into the south pier of the bridge. Whenever the water level of the Licking was low at the riffle, we could walk on the smooth basement stones of the foundation of the old dam, which had been left in place and not taken for the construction of the pier. Looming high above New Camp rose the solitary prominence of Johns Hill. During the Civil War, Wiggins Battery, also known as Johns Hill Battery, a Union artillery fortification was dug in the hillock to protect the Cincinnati area from possible incursion by Confederate forces approaching north along the Licking. During our own occupation, we climbed a particularly tall tree atop the hill and sat in awe amongst the highest limbs, where the towering buildings in downtown Cincinnati, some 3 miles away, were in clear view. Except for when my brothers and our cousin Ray Cooper swam through the Whitewater Riffle, while I, the oldest, stood lifeguard over them. New Camp was not our swimming hole, but it was an area where we explored the surrounding neighborhood and built campfires. Rather, we swam downstream at Old Camp, but swimming there was made difficult walking over the broken, tilted slabs of limestone rocks until we realized that the muddy shore on the opposite side of the river, on the Campbell County side, had to be easier on our feet to reach swimmable depths. When we three brothers began playing on the banks of the Licking River, I was the only one that could swim, and I use that word lightly. Still, on hot, humid days, our curiosity first enticed us to wade knee-deep in the river, and before long, we stripped off our clothes and immersed ourselves entirely in the cool spring-fed water. Later, we held on to logs with one arm and paddled across to the other side. With practice and by trial and error, we eventually became excellent swimmers and survived into adulthood with few, if any, narrow escapes on the water. And Bob and I are here to living proof. Those were just a few of our days on the Licking River. And like the song said, we thought they'd never end. But they did. Not only did those glorious halcyon days of summer end, but nearly 6 decades have passed since we last played at camp or swam in the invigorating waters of the Licking River. Since our last immersion in that stream, 3-mile riffle, and the basement stones of the ancient dam lie deeply submerged beneath the backwaters of Markland Dam. Johns Hill has since been ripped apart for fill material for the construction of Interstate 275. And near where we played at New Camp, an attractive park built and operated by the city of Wilder named Frederick's Landing, is where my stern-wheeler Clyde visited on 2 autumn weekends during recent consecutive years. Happily, the last time the Clyde was at Frederick's Landing, brothers Bob and Jeff and their wife Shirley, who's here tonight, and Betsy joined my youngest son Jonathan and me aboard the paddle wheeler for a sentimental cruise on the timeless Licking River. Eventually, I began steamboating aboard the steamer Avalon during the 1959-60 season. Started working on the Delta Queen after graduating from Eastern Kentucky University and served as an officer in the United States Air Force for over 4 years before returning to the Delta Queen. Within 6 months, I was second in command of the Queen, serving under the legendary Captain Ernest E. Wagner, who for many years called Newport, Kentucky his home. Within another year, I shared command of the Delta Queen with Big Cap, as Captain Wagner is fondly called by those who knew me best. I was the first captain of the excursion steamer, a P.A. Denny, on the Great Kanawha River at Charleston West. By God, Virginia. Always say it, you gotta say it like that. And I was the first officer of the mighty Mississippi Queen. I piloted towboats, shoving huge tows of barges on the Mississippi River, worked salvage with the legendary Captain John Beatty, served aboard a tiny ship in raging seas with waves 30 feet high, commanded 5 excursion boats, the Diamond, the 5 riverboat casino riverboats. The Diamond Lady, the Emerald Lady. Yay! Which is now the Bella Cincinnati. We got the great folks over here from there. Players Riverboat Casino, we had captain here. One. No, Steve, I got him. Well, I was captain of Players Riverboat Casino. Grand Victoria won. Got Captain Steve here was senior captain there. And Grand Victoria 2, which I was on for 16 years, senior captain. And owned 3 extraordinary boats. The John Henry, the Sunfish.
Who's that young guy there?
Yeah. That's scary. That's the Sunfish and the Clyde. It's all in the book. And much, much more. And we do have copies of the book over here if anybody's interested. I did write 235 columns. Judy Clay, a very well-known editor. She was editor of the Kentucky Post for 8 years. And she saw me writing on Facebook. She said, "Why don't you write for us?" And I did. I did 235 columns before I had to slack off because of the illness of my family. And 67 of the columns are in the book. And I've had a great time these past 80 years cruising the cosmos aboard the planet Earth. Thanks for inviting me tonight. Are there any questions? Questions? No questions?
Comments?
No questions? We could talk about those.
You answered everybody's question. Are you available for autographs?
Look at that.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, when we're all finished, get together with Don and he'll sign anything for you that you need signed.
most of them.
What a life this guy has had. Riverboat captain, he's a commercial airline pilot, military duty, all sorts of things. Just incredible. I'll be real short now, and we'll finish up here. Next month, we're meeting here again. A lot of people are aware of Robinson Road in Highland Heights, but nobody knows where the name Robinson came from. E.O. Robinson, Edward Robinson, was a timber baron, had thousands and thousands of acres down in southern Kentucky. He and his partner devastated the land. They just wiped all the trees out of it. And that really affected him. And he went back, he hired a woman then and sent her to Switzerland to learn how to do farming and how to live off of barren land like that. Brought her back, she trained all those people down there how to earn a living with that land. In the meantime, they reforested, I forget how many acres it was, but he wound up donating 15,000 acres to UK, and they still operated as Robinson Forest down there, and you can't go on there. You can't go have a picnic, you can't drive a car. It is purely for study of ecological environment there, and just unbelievable guy. He's done an incredible job. John Hoffer, who is a city council member for Highland Heights, owns his land down at the end of Robinson Road. He owns his property down there, has had his house listed on the historic register, and he's going to come talk to us about the house and the man. So, and then I think I told you there was some issue in May. Our May person had to move to November, so I had an opening. There's a young lady I contacted. Her name is Megan Bolt. She was really thrilled that she was going to get to come and talk to us, but she's moved to Los Angeles. And so But she agreed that we're gonna do a Zoom meeting type of thing where we can put her on there and you can talk to her, she can talk to you. And she has done some genealogical research that is just, she's a young woman, but she's done some fantastic genealogical research. And she has people in her family lines that were a vice president of the United States. She has African Americans in her line. She's got all sorts of interesting things that she's found out, and she's going to share all that with us. In June is our picnic, and in July, yes, we have Kelly Schneider Morgan from Schneider Sweet Shop coming to talk to us. I don't know yet if she's bringing samples, okay? We'll have to twist her arm a little bit and see if she'll do that. And then we'll get to the rest of the month later on. Does anybody else have anything need to be said tonight? Doesn't look like you're a quiet crowd. Wow.
We have just 5 copies of this.
Okay.
See me if you get one for $30. Sorry, but I can't take credit cards. Don't have any way to do it. Check or cash.
Okay, so Don's books are available. There's a few of them if you want one, and I'm sure he'll sign them for you, okay? With that, I'm going to go ahead and close tonight. And again, we thank all of you for coming out. Greatly appreciate it. Hope to see you back here again.